Hey Reddit, buckle up. This one's a ride. What started as another forgotten birthday turned into the most satisfying revenge I could have imagined, years in the making. So grab a snack, because this story's going to be long and worth it. I'm Adrian, 29 years old, a senior commercial architect living in Chicago. I earn about $145,000 a year, which is decent money for someone in my field. You'd think that would earn a little respect from my family, right? Wrong. To them, I might as well be working the counter at Subway. Meanwhile, my younger brother Asher, he's 27, gets celebrated like a national hero every time he glues two pieces of metal together. He calls himself an artist, and my parents treat his every doodle like it belongs in the Louvre. Now, before I go further, you need to understand the hierarchy in my family. The invisible ladder where Asher sits comfortably at the top, and I'm basically invisible. Take last Christmas, for example. We're all gathered around the tree when Asher unveils something that looks like a coat hanger that lost a fight with a blender. He calls it a commentary on industrial decay in late-stage capitalism. Dad nearly faints with pride. "This is museum-quality work, Asher. You're capturing the zeitgeist." Mom's already taking pictures for Facebook, so proud of our artistic genius. And there I am, sitting in the corner, having just wrapped an 18-month project redesigning the interior of the 40-story Millennium Tower, a project that won the Chicago Design Association's Innovation Award. Did anyone ask about it? Nope, not a single word. But here's where things start to shift, and where I begin to collect receipts. See, for months I'd been quietly documenting Asher's successful art career. And what I discovered was an elaborate financial fantasy that could make a Wall Street scam look simple. Because if there's one thing I'm good at, it's research. So when Asher started bragging about selling his pieces for thousands and being featured in exclusive galleries, my nonsense detector went off immediately. About 6 months ago, I was at a networking event at the Palmer House downtown. I mentioned Asher's name in passing, and this older guy, Elliot, overheard me. Turns out, he owns the West Side Contemporary Gallery, the same one where Asher supposedly has his exhibitions. Over coffee, Elliot casually drops the truth bomb. "Oh, your brother's one of our exhibition artists. Nice kid, but he's paying premium rates for wall space." "Paying rates?" I asked, trying not to react. "Yeah," he says. "We run on a vanity gallery model. Artists pay us for exhibition space. We host the opening, handle the presentation, and they get to say they've been in a gallery. Your brother pays $1,500 a month for prime wall placement. Inside, I'm doing math faster than a calculator. $1,500 a month for 2 years? That's $36,000 just for wall." Then Elliot adds, "He's sold maybe 3 small pieces in 2 years, a few hundred each. So my brother's spending $18,000 a year to pretend he's a professional artist, while earning maybe $600 total from sales." The numbers made 0 sense, unless someone was bankrolling the dream. That's when I started digging for real. For 3 weeks, I went through public records, credit reports, and financial databases. All the boring, methodical stuff that comes naturally when you're an architect who analyzes systems for a living. And then I found it. Monthly transfers, $1,800 from my dad's business account to Asher's account. Every month, for over 2 years. That's $46,800 in direct funding for Asher's fake art career. But it didn't stop there. His loft apartment in River North, $2,400 a month, also covered. Art supplies, studio rent, even his car payments, all traced back to mystery deposits that perfectly lined up with my parents' transfers. Total family investment in Asher's artistic career over 3 years? $89,000. Meanwhile, when I asked for a loan, not a gift, just a short-term loan, to help with my condo down payment 3 years ago, my dad gave me a 40-minute lecture about financial independence and earning things yourself. I didn't explode. I didn't confront anyone. I just kept collecting evidence, building a full case file, because this wasn't just family drama anymore. This was about principle. The Millennium Tower project was wrapping up, and I knew my $75,000 completion bonus was about to hit. 18 months of 60-hour weeks, late-night site visits, and stress that would break most people, all finally paying off. But my family had no idea. They never asked. They never cared. Yesterday was my 29th birthday, the one they forgot again. And that's the day I decided to stop being invisible and make myself unforgettable. If they wanted to worship a false idol, I was going to show them what real success looked like and make them pay attention. But I wasn't going to do it alone. I knew exactly who to call. I called Daniel the morning after my forgotten birthday. If you want an ally in financial guerrilla warfare, he's the guy. Korean-American MIT grad, my office partner and resident spreadsheet whisperer. Architect by day, trader by night. He's the one who taught me how to read balance sheets the way other people read blueprints. When I told him everything, the vanity gallery, Asher's sales, the pattern of transfers from Dad's accounts, he didn't get angry like most people. He got curious. That's half the battle. Okay, he said, mid-sip of his espresso. Business or personal? Family, I said. He sat up. The wheels turned loud enough in his head that I could hear it. Within 5 minutes, he'd sketched a plan on the back of a receipt. Make a visible purchase that forces my parents to reevaluate their assumptions, document their reaction, and simultaneously open an investigation into the gallery, so the subsidy engine behind Asher's career gets cut off. It sounds theatrical when you say it out loud, but Daniel's approach was methodical. He ran numbers, thought about optics, and suggested something blunt and undeniable. Buy something expensive and public, something that makes people ask one question: how did Adrian afford that? We weren't trying to humble brag. We were engineering a confrontation. The car was a tool, a catalyst to trigger the family meeting I'd always been denied. By lunch, he'd done local dealer research, loan calculators, and a psychological playbook. It has to be German, he said. It has to be visible. It has to look like money and not like a midlife crisis. He recommended the AMG, performance, presence, and a price tag that would make my parents' eyebrows do a different kind of math. He also warned me, this can't be a bluff. If I did it, I would own it, legally and financially. No lies, no fake funding sources. That part mattered to both of us. We wanted truth to be the weapon. With the bonus hitting my account that afternoon, the plan shifted from paper to action. I told Daniel the amount, and she smiled like someone who enjoys precision. Meet me at the Mercedes dealer on Michigan Avenue at 7. Wear something that says you belong in the room. Cut to B-roll, dealer showroom, chrome reflections. At the dealership, Daniel and I played our roles. He was calm and strategic. I was the steady client with a sizable down payment. The salesman, Colin, was polished, practiced, and used to people who wanted status more than transportation. Colin's professionalism made the transaction feel routine, which suited us. The car we chose was a 2021 Mercedes-AMG C63 in matte black. A compact but aggressive machine, 469 horsepower, twin-turbo V8, and an aesthetic that reads, earned. The final price with taxes and fees came to roughly $94,367. I put down $60,000 cash and financed the rest. The paperwork felt oddly celebratory. Signatures, IDs, the thin, satisfying tick of a pen closing a chapter. But buying the car was only phase 1. Daniel and I had already started phase 2, a targeted investigation into the gallery's business model. While I focused on the transaction and the photos we planned to take, Daniel cross-checked public records, tax filings, and complaint forums. He found patterns, recurring fees billed to multiple artists, questionable contract terms, and more families who were quietly subsidizing their children's careers. "How many?" I asked. "Enough," he said. "At least a dozen families and counting, and the money flows are consistent. There's a real pattern here." Production cue, subtle pause. That night, we staged a photo shoot by Navy Pier. The skyline was a deliberate backdrop. Chicago's glass and steel communicate credibility. Daniel shot the car from angles that emphasize design lines and dominance. We took photos that read like a portfolio, close details of leather and stitching, the grille reflecting city lights, a wide shot with the skyline behind it. Caption drafted, post scheduled. The message was simple and direct. Happy 29th to me. Dream car, dream career. Millennium Tower project officially wrapped. Completion bonus officially spent. Celebrate yourself. We hit publish. Within an hour, the post was bruised with notifications. Friends, colleagues, old classmates, lots of congratulations. A few impressed exclamations about architecture paying off. It was satisfying to be acknowledged by people who knew the work. But more importantly, I wanted the people who mattered, my parents, to see it and react. They reacted. Not the polite congratulations I'd been hoping for, but an old reflex I'd come to expect. Worry disguised as accusation. My dad called late that night and began with a string of questions that read like suspicion. Where did you get the money? Are you in debt? Is this legal? I answered calmly. I bought it with my bonus. I earned it. What followed was silence. Not the comfortable kind, but the recalculating kind. They had never asked about the Millennium Tower. They had never once checked in on my work. Suddenly, after a single image and a caption, they were forced to reconcile their assumptions. Before the next evening's family meeting, the one Dad insisted on the following night at 6 p.m., Daniel took the investigation public in a controlled way. He filed formal consumer complaints with the Illinois Attorney General's Office, the Better Business Bureau, and the City of Chicago's Department of Business Affairs. The complaints were narrow and legally grounded: deceptive business practices, misrepresentation of sales, and potentially improper tax treatment. It was surgical. The point wasn't just to humiliate Asher. It was to dismantle the infrastructure that allowed his career to exist without accountability. If the gallery's model required families to bankroll success, exposing the mechanics would make that model unsustainable. By the time the family dinner rolled around, the gallery's website had changed. There was a small notice: the West Side Contemporary Gallery is cooperating with ongoing inquiries by Illinois authorities regarding our exhibition policies and pricing structures. It was the kind of public disclosure that signals a business is no longer operating with impunity. When I walked into that dinner the next evening, I wasn't looking for drama. I was looking for a reckoning. I wanted a conversation built on facts, one that would finally place my experience next to the ledger entries, the bank transfers, and the contracts Daniel had compiled. But I also knew there was a chance I'd be accused of grandstanding. So I kept my tone neutral. The point was never to gloat. It was to correct an imbalance, to show how resources had been distributed within the family, and to force a discussion about fairness and transparency. Soft exhale. By Thursday evening, I was ready. The car keys sat in my pocket like punctuation, a quiet period at the end of years of being ignored. Daniel had already prepped every document: payment records, wire transfers, gallery contracts, and a short briefing on what vanity galleries actually are. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth management. At 6 p.m. sharp, I pulled into my parents' driveway. The matte black AMG stood out like an uninvited truth at a polite dinner. Through the window, I could already see them standing in the living room, peeking through the blinds. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Mom hovered near the table, arms folded, while Dad was sitting stiff-backed, the way he does before a business negotiation. Asher wasn't there yet, which was expected. He was probably still trying to figure out how much of this was about him. Dad spoke first. "Adrian, before we begin, I want you to understand we're only concerned for your well-being." That line was predictable, a mix of control and denial. I nodded and sat down. "Sure," I said, concern noted. "Let's talk." Mom jumped in before he could continue. "We saw your car on Instagram. It's impressive, but it's also expensive. You should have told us before making such a major purchase." "I did," I replied evenly. "I told the entire world. You just didn't notice until the world reacted." That landed quietly. Dad cleared his throat. "How exactly did you afford it? And please, no vague answers." $60,000 in cash from my Millennium Tower completion bonus. The rest financed under my own name at 2.9%. You can verify that if you'd like. They looked genuinely surprised. Mum frowned. "You got a completion bonus?" "Yes, $75,000 before taxes. 18 months of work. It was announced internally, but I guess that kind of news doesn't travel through the family group chat." Beat. Pause for narration pacing. Dad shifted in his chair, uncomfortable. "That's good, son, but you have to understand why we're cautious. A car like that can ruin your long-term saving strategy." "Sure," I said, still calm. "And it still costs less than what you've spent on Asher's art career." Silence. It became my business the moment I got lectured for asking for a loan, while you were quietly funding an art project that doesn't generate income. I'm not judging the support. I'm questioning the fairness. Mom's tone turned defensive. "Asher's career is an investment in his future. It's different." "Different how?" I asked. "Because it looks creative? Because it photographs better on Facebook than architectural blueprints?" They didn't answer. The truth was sitting right there on the table with us, heavier than the meal. At that moment, Asher walked in, late as usual. He froze halfway to the table when he saw my car keys next to the documents. "What's this?" he asked. "Documentation," I said. "You might want to sit down." He glanced at our parents, confused, then at me. "What's going on?" Dad sighed. "Apparently, your brother thinks we've done something wrong." I turned the laptop toward them, showing the West Side Contemporary Gallery's homepage. The banner at the top displayed the notice Daniel had mentioned. This gallery is currently cooperating with investigations by Illinois state authorities. Asher leaned forward. "Wait, what's this about?" It's about accountability, I said. That gallery isn't legitimate. It's a vanity operation. Artists pay for wall space, not because of talent, but because they can afford to pretend they're successful. And you've been one of their paying clients. His face shifted from confusion to panic. What are you talking about? I met the gallery owner months ago. He confirmed the pricing model. $1,500 a month. You've sold maybe 3 pieces for a few hundred each. The rest of your income was a family subsidy disguised as artistic success. Dad finally spoke up, louder now. That's enough, Adrian. You have no right to dig through your brother's finances. I stayed calm. Maybe not, but the state does. The gallery's under official investigation for consumer fraud and deceptive practices. They'll probably reach out soon to everyone listed as a paying exhibitor. Mom covered her mouth. You reported them? I didn't. My colleague did. A licensed financial strategist who specializes in fraud detection. He uncovered 12 more families being scammed by that same gallery. Over $400,000 in total. Asher sank into his chair, speechless. So this is what you've been doing, Dad said quietly. Yeah, I replied. Building something real while you were busy funding a fantasy. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I just want you to understand what I've accomplished, what I've earned, and what I've endured. Slight pause. The room stayed silent for a while. No yelling, no drama. Just the quiet sound of realization setting in. Finally, Mom said softly, We didn't know, Adrian. I know, I said. That's the point. After that, the conversation drifted into logistics. The gallery investigation, the financial records, what happens next? No one touched dinner. By the time I left, the mood was strange. Not angry, not apologetic, just real. Outside, the night was cold. The AMG's engine came to life with a low, restrained growl. For once, I didn't feel like I was showing off. I just felt free of explanation. Fade under engine sound. That meeting didn't fix everything. It wasn't supposed to. But it changed the tone of every conversation that followed. And the next morning, when I checked my messages, I saw something unexpected. An email from the Westside Contemporary Gallery's official address. Subject, we are reviewing our records and will be in contact with all current exhibitors. The next few days felt strangely calm. No angry calls, no guilt trips, just silence. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to explain myself to anyone. That email from the gallery wasn't just a formality. It was the beginning of something much bigger than I expected. By Monday morning, Daniel called me, voice tense but satisfied. They cracked, he said. The Illinois Department of Consumer Affairs opened an official inquiry. The gallery's accounts are frozen, and multiple artists are coming forward. Your brother's one of them. I didn't gloat. I just listened. Apparently, the Westside Contemporary wasn't even licensed to sell art. They were running a full-fledged vanity scam, charging artists thousands to display work in rented lofts, and staging fake openings to look legitimate online. Their Instagram page, the one Asher used to brag about, was mostly AI-generated images edited to look like gallery events. Every photo of a crowd was a paid marketing illusion. The investigation made headlines within a week. Vanity gallery scheme exposed. Dozens of artists defrauded in Chicago. Beat. Short pause for realism. That night, Mom called me. Her voice was quiet, unsure. Adrian, we owe you an apology. I didn't say anything. I let her continue. We should have seen it. We just wanted to believe he was doing something special. We didn't realize we were helping someone take advantage of him. I could hear the sincerity, the exhaustion. "It's okay," I said finally. "You didn't want to see it because you cared. That's not a crime. But ignoring someone who's actually doing well, that's what hurts." There was a long silence before she replied. "You've always been independent. We thought you didn't need us." I smiled faintly. "Everyone needs to be seen once in a while, Mom." Soft background score rises slightly, then fades. The following weekend, the family group chat lit up again, this time not with Asher's art photos, but with an article link. Dad had shared the Chicago Tribune story about the gallery bust, writing, "Proud of our son for helping expose this." That sentence, "our son," hit harder than I expected. Later that week, Asher showed up at my office. He looked different, smaller somehow, like the weight of the truth had shrunk him a bit. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He glanced around my office, the open plans, the blueprints, the model mock-ups under soft lights. "This is what you do every day?" "Yeah," I said. "Been doing it for years." He nodded slowly. "I didn't realize how much work this actually takes." I shrugged. "You didn't want to realize." He smiled faintly. "You're right. I wanted the easy version of success. The kind that looks good online." We stood there for a minute, not saying anything else. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out something small. A sculpture. Metal. Abstract. But this one was different from the chaotic stuff he used to make. It was minimal, clean, structured, like he finally understood balance. "I made this last week," he said. "No gallery, just made it. Thought you'd get it." I took it, felt its weight. Cold steel, welded together with precision. For the first time, it didn't look like pretense. It looked like effort. "Thanks," I said quietly. Beat, slower narration. The months that followed were surprisingly peaceful. The investigation wrapped up. The gallery owners were fined, and artists got partial refunds. Asher started taking real art classes, not chasing fame, just learning technique. My parents stopped comparing us. And me? I moved into a new firm, larger projects, higher stakes. I didn't buy another car, didn't post anything for attention, because somewhere along the way, I realized the revenge wasn't the point anymore. The satisfaction didn't come from winning. It came from finally being understood, without having to shout for it. Sometimes, justice doesn't look like punishment. Sometimes it just looks like truth finally standing on its own, quiet and undeniable. So, yeah, that's how my forgotten birthday turned into the best gift I ever gave myself: respect. And that's the story of how one man used patience, strategy, and a little bit of truth to rewrite his family's entire dynamic. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment. What would you have done in Adrian's place? Would you expose the lie or just walk away? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more stories like this one, where karma comes quietly but hits perfectly.